Inside the Huddle with Keith Schwager. Keith, we're going into week 10. It's the last week of the regular season, the LL League already. Let me ask you, what stands out from the first 9 weeks? You've been at what we call the Spotlight Game. We're going to talk about your matchup in a second. You've seen the best teams, the best players this year. What things come to mind?
Well, the first observation I would make is that the league was a little top-heavy this year. There's a clear line of distinction between like maybe the top, 5 or 6 teams and the rest of the league. And really the top 4 in my mind hasn't changed all season long.
Who are they?
Wilson certainly in Section 1. Manheim Central and Cocalico are sort of like 1 and 1A in Section 2, and then Penn Manor, and then maybe kind of just right with them is Hempfield. I think those 5 teams have really kind of separated themselves from the rest of the pack. And, there were a lot of good teams besides that, even if their records don't reflect it. But those 5 to me have always kind of been up near the top. People may question Hempfield, but, they're 6 and 3 right now. Those 3 losses were to Wilson, Manheim Central, and Penn Manor. So
nothing to sneeze at, yeah.
Yeah, and they were competitive, and even with Central, they lost that game 52-19, but they were up 12-0 after 1 quarter. So it was competitive, competitive as you can get with Manheim Central for a while. Central and Wilson, I think, are, Central by virtue of beating Cocalico, that bolts them up. They're the 2 undefeated teams. Both of them have had great seasons. As far as players that have stood out to me, best dual threat quarterback is certainly Mark Piles from Lebanon.
Okay.
He's over 2,000 yards passing, has 1,000 yards rushing. I'd hate to think where they would be without him. And Lebanon's 6 and 3 this year. That's coming off an 0-10 season.
Yeah.
They're my most improved team. Certainly from one year to the next. Back of the year, boy, you can make a case for Charlie Bell from Penn Manor. He's a two-way starter at running back, linebacker. Really kind of makes the Comets go. They line him up all over the field, including in the Wildcat. He's been a very good player for the Comets this year. Mark Royer, certainly from Manheim Central, 1,400 yards rushing this year.
Wow.
He's had a great season. He has a good mate in the backfield in Ian Hanselman. Central really got that ground game going this year. One name that people may not know outside of Myerstown anyway is Cameron Strauss from Elko. He's over 1,000 yards this year and is really by far, their most valuable player. And, they started off really slowly, but they're 4 and 5 right now. So, they've come on a little bit with him there. So, yeah, I think it's been a good season. I'm looking forward to the playoffs. We're going to have probably, I'd say, 10 teams, 9 or 10, somewhere in that neighborhood get in, depending on how this week's results are. So, yeah, there's 23 teams in the league. If 10 of them get in, I think that's a pretty good showing for the Lancaster-Lebanon League. So, in spite of, there being some parity beyond, those teams at the top, I think the league represented itself pretty well this year.
Top 2 teams are Wilson and Central. If they played each other, who would win that game?
Boy, Wilson people are going to hate me because I picked against them all year, including last week against Penn Manor. I took some heat on Twitter for that, but I think Manheim Central's really good. I think they're, deep run in the playoffs, possibly state's good, depending on how they would fare against Bishop McDevitt. Yeah, Wilson's really good this year. They're not as one-dimensional as they were last season when they went to the state semifinals, but yeah, I'd have to lean slightly in Manheim Central's direction.
I'd love to see that matchup.
I would too, but
Not going to happen.